Welcome to lesson number 2. The patient experience will never be better than the employee experience. So, your frontline medical office employees have incredible power. Metaphorically, they wield giant swords, like the real heavy ones you see in the movies. They're kind of like poof. But then they can wield that sword. Their words cut to the bone. They can not manage tensions like the best with the best of them, right? They cannot meet people's expectations with the best of them. Now, I might not be talking about your practice because I've found that the physicians who are taking this course have incredible practices and they already know a lot of this stuff. This is just reinforcement that they're on the right track. But you're an example to them of this stuff. And so I want to reinforce that idea in you that you are leading. By leading well, you are leading them in a better direction too. So metaphorically, these staff members, these employees, these front office, frontline workers wield incredibly giant and heavy swords, and they can leave a wake of destruction in their path. Conversely, in the very few medical offices that you probably know or like and trust in serving, they're doing incredible jobs serving people with a smile. These are rare, right? You and I both know, like, if there was a doctor out there, a doctor's office, that's the one I would call. Well, I don't know if I would go to that one, but I would go to that one. That's the doctor's office. These are rare medical office experiences you and I encounter that are diamonds in the rough, man. Sometimes, however, employees themselves can forget this too. So as a physician, you know that these interactions directly impact patients. They impact how they listen to you, how they'll interact with you. And you wonder in 6 months, like, why are you coming back here for the exact same problem we just had a conversation about 6 months ago, and you're in a worse situation? Well, the patient journey is long. Like, it's an emotional thing to come to a doctor's office. It's an emotional, psychological life event. I had to take a half a day off of work in many cases just to be here, right? And so when we're sitting in the exam room, we're not necessarily, we're here to talk to the doc, but at the same time, I'm thinking about what your staff member just did, and I just can't get it out of my head. I'm thinking about the dirty restroom that had paper towels, literally, true story, all over. There was a flood in the toilet down the hall. As a physician, you and I both know that these interactions directly impact patients. Whether you like it or not, these interactions are a bright and shiny reflection, or maybe a dull, broken reflection of your good or your poor leadership skills. Thomas Edison said, the reason most people do not recognize an opportunity when they meet it is because it usually goes around wearing overalls and looking like hard work. If your team does not have an appreciation for their position, their station, their role, and their status in your practice, and moreover, an appreciation for the patient experience will never be better than the employee experience. And simply stated, the patient experience is an overflow of the employee experience. So if you want patient experience to be better, tinker with the employee experience. Do your employees enjoy their work? Do you allow them to interrupt you when you're seeing patients? Do they know precisely how to work you? How and when to give you good news or bad news, or purposefully hide certain things until maybe you're in a better mood? Or do you dismiss their ideas because in some cases they weren't your idea? This may not describe your office, may not describe your current culture, but you probably can think of at least 3 medical offices right now that this does impact, that this does describe. Your employees in your front office, those front office line administrative staff should understand that there is a purpose beyond the paycheck. This is best on display when your employees view patients through the lens of necessary versus nuisance, right? We've all felt as patients like, oh, like they really don't want me to be here. They're really unwelcoming. You can tell. Here, I remember walking into a medical office with my daughter. True story. This was within the last year or two. And we opened the door and it was one of those sliding glass windows, right? Took a while for the person who could clearly see us to finally open the window. But then all along the frame of the service window, the takeout window, whatever you want to call it, was all these signs kind of in all caps, yelling at people as soon as they walk in the signage. Pay your bill, you're responsible, pay your bill. Clearly they've got a problem with collections. But we start to see this on display where patients, and maybe even your peers, when they talk with other peers or nurses, feel like I'm a nuisance. Like, you're making me kind of feel like I'm a nuisance. Like, I don't want to bother you. Sorry. Or am I unnecessary? Is there gratitude that comes with me being here? Because what if patients stop coming? Well, there's always going to be patients. Healthcare is a great business, right? Because there's always going to be patients, just like funeral homes. Well, in today's healthcare environments, patients are abandoning their primary care. That's what the data is telling us, right? You don't have to search very far online to learn that retail healthcare clinics, urgent care clinics, emergency rooms, patients are unhappy with the care that they're receiving in family medicine primary care. And if they're not, have high expectations, which you will never be able to meet. But patients are abandoning their primary care providers, their family medicine offices and specialists too, at a pretty significant click. This continued erosion of the patient experience is eroding a patient's trust in the healthcare community at large too. We can all agree that every single day, each patient will leave a practice, will leave your practice, maybe your colleague's practice, and tell a story about you to someone that they meet. What are you celebrating before that patient leaves the practice? What are you celebrating about the patient during your visit with them? What are the stories that patients are going to share with others about you, about your team, about your staff? If you truly want to cultivate new patient referrals, it's got to start with an attitude of gratitude. That patients are viewed as a necessity, not a nuisance. You have to become raving fans of your patients and your employees. You see, designing a culture of gratitude with appreciation at the center for the patient begins with appreciation and it ends with celebration. It's a pretty simple formula that both you and your staff can communicate pretty easily. There's always going to be problems to solve and tensions to manage, plain and simple. But in order to design a culture of gratitude in your practice, there's quite a few research and studies and articles on the effects of gratitude in our moods and our mental health and well-being. And we've included a half a dozen or so of those citations and links below. So I encourage you to read every one of them. They're actually pretty good, and do some research on your own. Patient referrals don't happen simply because you happen to have done a thing or two right in the patient experience department. Patient referrals happen because you and your staff did a lot of things right, and you had a plan to recover when things went wrong or needed to manage the tension and frustration. Now, I'm a student of customer service in healthcare, and oftentimes that's really difficult because there's not a lot of really great examples of hospitality and customer service in healthcare. In fact, most of what healthcare learns is from concierge medicine in particular, about how well they treat patients and how well they treat each other and their teams. We learn from concierge medicine. But I'm a student of things outside of healthcare related to customer service. And I try to take that instruction and show physicians, show concierge doctors in particular, because they're much more open and willing to learn and apply and can quickly move and adjust their model in their practice culture to adopt these things. And they're doing it already. And that's some of the stories you'll hear in the lessons ahead too. But I'm a student of customer service and hospitality in healthcare, or should I say lack thereof, hospitality in healthcare, customer no service in healthcare, some might call it. From the bill for $21 that was sent to collections, to the exam room and the bathrooms, every little thing in healthcare communicates something to people. Leadership training companies like the Ritz-Carlton and the Disney Institute train people on the importance of a warm, welcoming greeting, smile, and making eye contact, and why that's so important within 12 feet. They train and incorporate these ideals into their courses and their training because for far too long, companies and leaders of companies have made it all about trying to make customers become fans of the brand, not the other way around. Author and John Maxwell leadership communicator Jeff Henderson, author of the book Know What You're For, writes, if a business was a person, many businesses would be considered narcissists, and narcissism is bad for business. Now, how does that overlay into healthcare? How many ads do we see for health systems and hospitals and urgent cares and doctors' offices? I'm great. I'm amazing. I'm educated. You should come see me. You should think I'm as great as I think I am. That's pretty much what the advertising tells and informs people in our communities about healthcare, right? So you drape that statement like a wet blanket over the healthcare culture that you and I both work in, that your colleagues work in, your teams work in, and practice and participate in. And it hits to the core of what's wrong with healthcare and customer service. Or should we say customer no service? It's why you and I see so many doctors chasing reviews. What about search results and getting rid of negative reviews? Patient referrals don't happen simply because you happen to have done one thing or two things right in a patient experience department today. And you're like, whoof, we made that patient happy. But the other 17, we got to work on. Patient referrals happen because you and your teams did a lot of things right. And you had a plan to recover when things went wrong and you needed to manage the tension and the frustrations. How you recovered matters. Your peers will have a lot more grace for you if you've shown that they're not a nuisance and that they're necessary. And you do that through expressions of gratitude. Now, this seems very, very counterintuitive in healthcare in particular. It feels like I'm pushing a boulder up a mountain every single day when I talk about stuff like this. And there's very few, I would say 1 out of every 10, I think 9 out of every 10 doctors agree with this, but only 1 out of every 10 will actually, maybe 2, will actually do something about it. That's the ones, man, those are the ones that leave a mark, leave an impression. That's how you can tell a great doctor versus a good doctor, right? You know the difference. Don't tell me you don't. And I know this seems, again, counterintuitive in healthcare because it is. You see, I'm not a physician. I'm a patient. And I know exactly what it's like to sit on the other side of you. I know what it's like to brag about my doctor to my friends and my family and my neighbors and tell everyone I can find who will listen about how amazing healthcare could be and should be, because I want them to experience the same thing too. I want them to know that there is something different out there. You're out there. For many patients, they hear more from their doctor about what's going wrong with them than what's going right. And in fact, patients usually think, oh no, what's wrong? Every doctor we have interviewed over the past 20 plus years has echoed this statement, this sentiment, and you probably do every single day that you enter your doors too. That is, do my patients know that I truly care about them? That's a strong question. And this is the number one question each patient is asking right now when they think about you. It is the only thing they are concerned about when they book an appointment with your staff, and it's why they are willing to take a half a day off of work to see you. Author Jeff Henderson goes on to add, the pathway to creating raving fans is highly competitive. Ever-changing business world isn't easy. Winning organizations of tomorrow will be more concerned with becoming fans of their customers instead of convincing customers to become fans of the organization. What if your practice marketing department, what if the hospital or health system marketing department started to view patients as necessary versus a nuisance? And they did it under the umbrella of gratitude. A lot of medical offices, teams, and even doctors will argue that they already know this stuff. This is not new, and I'm not sharing anything groundbreaking. But I counter that by saying, knowing and doing are two different things. I won't keep coming back to your practice if I don't think you care about me. In fact, it is in fact quite rare to see a medical office, a team, or a doctor spotlight the patient and celebrate their achievements. You're like, well, how do we do that? There's HIPAA, of course, right? You want to keep privacy. But there are ways. Whether it be a weight loss or blood level results, patients love to hear from their doctor. They love to be appreciated and celebrated. They want to be seen, heard, and recognized by you. 5 words from you carry a lot of weight, right? The author matters. I want to impress my doctor the next time I have a Zoom call with him or a FaceTime call with him or see him in the practice and we're kneecap to kneecap. I want to impress him. I want him to say, dude, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I want to impress you. Patients want to impress you in many cases. Not all of them, but some of them. But there are a lot of medical office cultures and your peers that are too busy talking about negative results and instead talking about how busy they are and talking with the patient, talking to the patient, not with. And they talk to the patient and leave the room without relationship. And the patient leaves with more questions, comes up with more questions, and because they're overwhelmed. Now, I'm not a physician, but I am a patient, and I can discern in a few seconds, just like everybody else can, and just like you can as well. I can discern in a few seconds if the doctor entering the exam room gives a rip about me. I can observe their body posture, their facial expressions, and even their eye contact with me. When was the last time you celebrated a patient for their weight loss or lifestyle change or with a handwritten private note? Aren't these the most precious moments in their lives? Now, there are some, I can already hear it, right? There are some out there who are like, am I going to get paid for that? I think if you're taking this course, you know that's not the point. Aren't those the most memorable doctor-patient encounters you recall when you think back on your long career of helping patients? Now, again, there are those out there who work in a model, they work in a place that this isn't possible. This is pie in the sky stuff. But again, I go back to knowing and doing. It's two different things. Maybe it's time for a reevaluation of your current career choices. I don't know. It's your decision. Every patient is going to tell a story about you. That's what I do know. I want that story to be a good one. I want it to be a great one. So with all of that said, what is designing a culture of gratitude? What is gratitude's effect on the culture of your medical practice? Well, Gratitude puts you and your team in a position to flourish. It breathes new life into friendships, and it is attractive to patients, your team members, and your peers. Remember, patient experience is only going to be as good as the employee experience. So I'm including in a few research studies, articles, and perspectives from a more scientific and evidence-based vantage point that you may want to read and consider doing your own research as we walk through this course together. I hope that you'll read some of them because they're pretty darn good. There's one called The Gratitude and Well-Being, the Benefits of Appreciation. There's one, Your Brain on Gratitude, how a neuroscientist used his research to heal from grief. Gratitude journaling, it turns out, transformed a neuroscientist's grief and likely his brain. The impact of gratitude on mental health. How gratitude changes you and your brain. I love this stuff. Go geek out on it as much as I am. I hope that you'll find it helpful. That concludes this lesson. I hope that you found it helpful. Now, go write a thank you note. Go write a handwritten note to an employee, a colleague, or patient who knows you know that they need it. It just might change their day, might change their year. Thank you.